Hello, Emma. I am in my car tonight because my parents are asleep and I don't want to wake them up with my vlogging. Also because they think it's weird and I don't really want to explain what I'm doing at 11 o'clock at night. So, you had an important interview today and you had talked about it a little bit in your last video, and you wanted me to talk about my worst interviewing experiences and what I've learned and how I prepare for interviews and things like that. And I have not really had like a terrible interview experience, but I have had really important interviews. The main interview that comes to mind when I think about important interviews, of course, is my nursing school interview and how that went, how important that was. And there were definitely some important things that I learned from that experience that I'd like to make this video about today. So, when I was going to do my nursing school interview, it would pretty much meant if I could keep going down the path that I wanted or not. I really didn't have a backup plan. If I failed my interview and I didn't get into school, I don't know what I would have done. So I overly prepared for the interview. I looked up all of the kinds of questions that have been asked at my school previously. I looked up questions about what other people have been asked at nursing school interviews, and I just prepared a whole bunch of answers for a whole bunch of different questions. My school did offer mock interviews that were run by, I don't even know who they were run by, but I think it was run by a club. I did not go to that because to me that just is enough anxiety to feel like its own interview in and of itself, and I didn't need that the weekend before my actual interviews. And I handle my interview anxiety a little bit differently than most people. Most people practice till they're not anxious anymore, whereas me, it's kind of like a one and done. I am best the first time that I am in an anxious situation answering questions, and I think that's just because I can't overthink it, and if I get in a situation more than one time, I will just think that the last time I answered this question, it went terribly, and I need to change everything about it, and it will just be worse the further I go with that. So I am decent under pressure in interview situations because I don't let myself overthink it in the moment. This is different than every other aspect of my life where I have time to be anxious and overanalyze and, panic until I make the wrong decision, which happens a lot in like exam situations, I've gotten to the point where it doesn't affect my grades or how I am successful or not at school, but it is a thing where I change answers all the time on exams that I don't need to change, and that I actually change from correct answers to incorrect answers because I panic and overanalyze and do things that I shouldn't do. And so that's one nice thing about interviews is the worst part about my anxiety isn't a factor, which is why I've never really had a bad interview. But I have had lots of job interviews. I was counting it earlier. I've gotten the fast food job interview, I had the kids club interview, I had the nanny interview, the retail interview. I've had about 5 or 6 different job interviews because I've had like 10 jobs, and some of those jobs I got, of course, through different connections and just working for relatives and things. So I've been lucky in that aspect that I haven't had many job interviews, and the ones I've had have gone fairly well, enough that I at least got the job. But there have never been a job that I have applied for that I didn't feel I was qualified for, which I feel like is a good thing for me to get the job, but also I don't really put myself out there to do new things that I don't know how to do, because I'm really hard on myself when I'm doing new things that I don't know how to do. So, yeah, that is what I wanted to talk about today. For your video on Thursday, I want to ask you, how do you put yourself out there to do scary things that you don't know how to do, or how do you handle it when you don't do things the way that you would like to do them the first time around? And do you think that you're doing more things that are out of your comfort zone lately? Do you feel like you've been doing less? I just want to hear your opinions on this. So, Emma, good night, and I will see you on Thursday.